Happy New York Tuesday. This is the Let's Go Mets podcast. I am your host, Sam Wu. This is episode 6, titled A-Rod and J-Lo Buying the Mets. Streaming live on the Let's Go Mets podcast social media platforms, all powered by Nova Product Design. From Primetime Radio, now simulcasting on the Primetime Radio Network. Oh, yeah, that was the headlines this morning in the New York Post that J-Lo and A-Rod are really taking the serious first steps in raising capital to buy the New York Mets. I know about a month, maybe 2 months ago, there was some talks and some rumors about it. Jimmy Fallon on The Tonight Show asked A-Rod, and A-Rod replied back, quote, "I will say this. If the opportunity came up, meaning buying the Mets, I would certainly look at it." And, and back then when he said that, it was kind of like, yeah, that's nice. We poked fun, but look, if him and Jennifer Lopez are going to make a serious bid there, I mean, I don't know, Mets fans. I mean, why don't you comment on below in the Facebook Live or Twitter Periscope or YouTube Live? What are your thoughts on it? I mean, I have mixed feelings about it. I mean, both were born in New York. Jenny from the block. She's from the Bronx. And, but when I think of Jennifer Lopez over the years, I mean, and I'm going to start off with the negatives here. I mean, this is what I think. I mean, there's A-Rod. She's wearing a Yankees cap from the Bronx, and that's her ex-husband, Mark Anthony. That's the image I have in my head. And, of course, the Daily News, I love this one, the new Mr. and Mrs. Met. A-Rod and J-Lo step up to buy the Amazins. So I have mixed feelings about that. I want everybody to chime in on Facebook Live, YouTube Live, Twitter, Periscope, at Let's Go Mets Podcast, or at Let's Go Mets Pod on Twitter and Periscope. Let's start off with the pros. They're notable figures. They're polarizing figures. I don't know if it's going to be going to the Mets game is going to be cool, but I just can't get those Yankee images out of my head. Back in the day when A-Rod was a player looking for a new team, coming out of Seattle. Come on, Steve Phillips, make him a big offer. It looked so good back then. This is before all the, PEDs, steroid scandals, drama, and, the rivalry between two shortstops, Derek Jeter and A-Rod, had he come to the Mets. And then, they went into contract negotiations and, according to Steve Phillips, and I read it somewhere, and hopefully my memory is correct on this, that, I mean, he was asking for the world, private jets, and all sorts of perks. And the Mets were like, at the time, Steve Phillips like, nah, we can't do this. So A-Rod signs with the Texas Rangers, has a couple good years, gets traded to the Yankees, and this is coming off the Aaron Boone home run. And at that moment, the Red Sox had not won a World Series ring since 1918 at that time. And here's A-Rod, the drama, the controversy, controversy followed A-Rod. A lot of it was fair, but a lot of it wasn't. I mean, the spotlight was on him. But one thing about A-Rod that I like is his competitiveness and either go big or go home. I mean, now I'm just sticking on the pros right now because there's other cons I would get into this podcast. But, you know, one of the pros about A-Rod is he has changed over time, you know, shown remorse. You know, on TV, he's good, I think. His analysis, I think the one thing he did with Fox Sports, I believe it was Pete Rose, A-Rod, and I forgot who the other guy was. I believe it was Joe Morgan. I don't remember. You know, just talking baseball. I mean, it's just fascinating. The rivalry between Derek Jeter and A-Rod, I mean, they were just, I mean, they were just, they were married at the hip, as like almost like they were brothers in the beginning. I mean, obviously the relationship is different, but there was always a competitive spirit there. Now Derek Jeter has left the Yankees and bought the Marlins, and I almost said Florida Marlins, but Miami Marlins or whatever they're called, the South Beach Marlins. And now A-Rod, it's almost like you kind of want to one up him and buy a New York team. Now, I'm sure, look, we're all competitive. But in some ways I like that, and then I'll go in some ways where I don't like that. But he's very competitive, and I just think that if A-Rod can transform the Mets into a perennial World Series contender with his team, he's going to have a team to build it with, just like Derek Jeter. You need to have your money guy, and him and J-Lo are working with J.P. Morgan Chase. They're working with their people to fundraise and get a group together to, and Steve Cohen, I mean, he had his chance, but he didn't take it. And you know what? Allegedly walked away from a $2.6 billion deal. And, again, were the Wilpons wanting to get greedy? But, again, this is New York. You have to pay a premium. And let's go with the cons right now, because, with the pros, I think that A-Rod and J-Lo, they can bring a lot to the table. But for Mets fans, it's all about winning. So if they're not winning, a lot can happen. One of the things that I'm sure the lawyers are going to figure out, but one of my concerns as a Mets fan, okay, what happens if they do buy this team? All right, they do buy this team, and again, I'll go back. I'll go back to this image. This is all I remember. What's going to happen? Here you have A-Rod in the same division as Derek Jeter, where he's down in Florida. Which, by the way, kudos to Jeter for foregoing his $5 million a year salary during this pandemic. Got to give kudos to him for that, and also they're working ways to pay their staff during this shutdown, and so that is worthy noting at this time. But again, controversy will follow. I mean, A-Rod, we spent, well, at least I spent many years booing A-Rod. Like, A-Rod, I remember seeing signs at Fenway Park, A-Rod is an a-hole, or the T-shirts being sold by Boston Red Sox fans. He was a villain that you love to hate. And yes, I know he grew up as a Mets fan, and I know that. But if you're going to own the team, I don't know. It's either feast or famine with these two. And again, right now they're happy, but I don't know. I get this hunch, and I don't wish it upon anybody, but is this going to be another situation? What happens if they break up? I mean, Hollywood celebs, they get married and break up all the time, and they're going to have a partnership with this ownership group. No doubt. I'm sure, their relationship is strong and everything, but it just scares me because of those possibilities. Not that I'm a negative guy, but I always think of what could really happen, what worse could happen. I mean, I remember the Dodgers when that divorce was played out in the media. That was ugly. It wasn't until the Magic Johnson group finally bought the team. I mean, that was ugly. And then you have these two high-profile, polarizing figures in New York before this thing, potentially buying the Mets. I know some Mets fans are happy. Oh, the heck with the Wilpons. Freddie Coupon. Jeff Coupon. You see it. And then the whole Madoff situation. I just think when you see the headlines, the first thing, and I have to admit, is, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? But really, you know what, Mets fans, as much as I want to criticize this, I've always, it's just like when Daniel Jones was first drafted and Giants fans were just like, what? What are you doing, Gettleman? You screwed us again, Gettleman. But, sometimes we shouldn't rush to judgment. Maybe there's something here. Again, going back with the pros, I like A-Rod's competitiveness. Sometimes he takes it a little too far, as we know, which we're not going to get into details. Another story for another day. I just hope that with these two owning the New York Mets franchise, that I really just hope that it's about baseball, it's about winning, and it's all about us, New York Mets fans, and New York and the tri-state area. And that's all I have to say, because I can't stand this losing. I can't stand the disappointment. All the time, I always, just like you, Mets fans, I'm always griping about, why the heck am I a Mets fan? But you know what? I'm damn proud of it. And I just hope A-Rod and J-Lo, if they were to buy the team, they're going to pay a lot of money, by the way, so they've got a lot to lose, that they bring winning back to Queens. Thank you for joining me on this Let's Go Mets podcast, episode 6. I love talking about your New York Mets. Till next time, let's go Mets!